Hello and welcome back to another video where we discuss our favorite cybersecurity tools. Today we're going to be discussing MySQL databases and how to set them up on Windows 11. So, what MySQL is, it's an open source database server utility that is available for pretty much all operating systems, Mac, Linux, and Windows. And you can find it at the installer at dev.mysql.com, downloads MySQL, and you would get the Windows MSI installer if you're on Windows, and if you're on a different OS, you can go down to the drop down here and select your specific operating system. So from there, you would download it, and then would go and set it up, which I have it on my desktop here. But before we do that, I also recommend beginners and even if you're not a beginner, I would also recommend you, if you don't know about it, to look into the MySQL Workbench, which you can get at this link up here. And what this does is gives you a graphical utility where you can manage your MySQL databases a lot easier than if you were just to do everything in the command line. It lets you graph out the schemas. It gives you easier ways of modifying your tables. It gives you like a whole structure of your database layout, and you can also write automated SQL scripts in there too. So we're going to be looking in the Workbench when we after we set it up, and this is what I'm going to be using to interact with the databases. So I'd recommend looking into this. All right, so once you download the setup executable, we'll go and we run it, we accept our license agreement, and we get a couple options on what type of installation we want to go through. For now, we can just stick with the typical installation, which just gives you pretty much everything you need to get started with databasing. Complete gives you all other features, but for us today, typical is going to work just fine. Copy those files over. And once this is done, it's going to open up a configurator application. And this is where we actually begin setting up our database. So the first thing it's going to ask you is where you want the databases to be stored. By default, it's under the programs directory, program data directory. We can go in here and create a databases folder on our desktop just so we can easily find them later and point it to there. Under here, this is where we set up our networking type, our config type. This defines how much system resources are going to be allocated to the database server. In this case, for testing and getting familiar with MySQL, I recommend the development computer. It's just going to make a very lightweight instance of it. And if you have other things going on, you're barely going to notice it running. Now, of course, if you're looking to do this on a dedicated system, you can, or a server or a dedicated computer, you can look into these other options which are more resource heavy. But for us, stick with the development computer. Under here, this is where we set up our networking connectivity. So we enable TCP/IP. It's going to be listening on port 3306. And we can also choose if we want to forward this port through your firewall. So like say if you want to connect to it from another computer on your network, like a laptop, you can do that. I'm going to keep this default. Everything else is not really important for us today, but I'll keep that the way it is for us. And then this is where we just create our root account credentials. And under here, we can add an additional user, which I will do. Talk you through on how to do that. So under hosts here, we get an option if we want this user to connect from all hosts, meaning all including remote hosts, or we can do just localhost, which means that this user is going to be restricted to only logging in from the local computer. Like you wouldn't be able to log in with this user from another laptop. In this case, I'll keep it localhost because I'm not connecting from anywhere else. We will specify DB administrative rights, which makes that user a administrator, and then we'll provide them a password. And then from there, once we have the rules set up, we get into the Windows service configurations, which this is really where you can customize the service name, and if you want the MySQL to start up in the background on startup, so it's always running. We can keep that default. This one you can turn on or off if you want the server to start up when you turn on the computer, or if you want to just start it yourself, you can uncheck it. Under here, this is where we can specify if we want to use a custom user to run the service or the standard system account user. In our case, we can keep it the standard system account. If you're doing this in the enterprise, you might want to consider doing a custom user for security purposes, but for, just testing, there's nothing wrong with doing a system under system account. And then this is just asking if you want to give access to the grant full access to the user running the service. Yeah, why not? Under here, this is some sample databases, and then we'll just execute. And this is setting up. It's just running all the setup scripts, and it should be completed any second now. There we go, and we're done. Okay, so now under our recommended tools, you might see MySQL command line client, or you can type in MySQL and you can see plenty of tools in our start box here, or search box. We'll start with the command line, so I can show you how to log in from that. Start the application. It just asks you for your password, and now you're in the database server. So databases, and we can list our databases with that. And now we'll open up our Workbench and take a look at that. So under Workbench, we have our local instance, which automatically is populated here. It detects that we have a local instance. Let's say if we want to create our own connection, we'll press the little plus button there. This is if you're, just so you guys know how to create your own. And we'll do test DB for the connection name. And we have our host name, which is the IP address for our server. We'll just keep it as the loopback interface. Under port 3306, the root account, and then we'll provide our root password in here. We can test our connection, and we see that we have a successful connection. Click OK, and now we have that instance down at the bottom there. And once you work your way into the SQL workbench here, MySQL workbench, we can see we have some options here about our server status, client connections, user and privileges, that type of stuff, administrative stuff here. And then if we click over to the schema tab, we can see our databases that are currently in our database server. And of course, we see our world. This is one of the sample databases, and we can right-click on one of the tables, and the tables is what holds our actual data. And we have city table, and if we right-click, we can do select rows, which just prints them out in this little grid down here, and we can see our data. And you can go into here and you can modify the data if you want. Let's say, we want to update population to by 1. Hit enter, and you click the little apply button here, and it's going to update the world city table and sets the population to what is that? 1,007,780,001, and now that is saved. So that's how you'd modify and select data. Now let's say if we wanted to create a new database in our query box here. We'll do create database and give our database a name. So we'll just do testDB, and this is going to create our testDB database. And we can see down here we get some action output, so it tells us if our queries ran successful or they return an error. Over here, if we refresh, now we have our testDB database. What we can do is under tables, we can create new tables. And we'll call this one table 1. This is a test table under the comment, right? And then we'll populate our columns. We'll give our define our columns for that table there. So our first thing we need is an ID, which keeps track and it's of each row, and it's a unique identifier for that row. So that's what the public key is, or the primary key. Excuse me. We'll set not null, so it's forced to be populated. There has to be a value in there. And I like to do the auto incrementing. So when new data is added to the database, because when you get into the enterprise, there's a lot of scripts running. There's probably a lot of other utilities writing to the database. This will just keep track of that number, and every time there's something written to that table, it's going to increment that unique value by 1. So that's what the auto incrementing does. Here we could do specify our other fields. We'll do like things like first name, last name, and we'll do phone number. And there we go. And we will do not null, not null, not null. For those, we don't have to do a primary key for them, and we don't have to do auto incrementing, because auto incrementing is only for integers. The varchar is like a string. This stores like characters and text, right? Integers are just whole numbers, like 1 through 9, right? Well, 1 to whatever. But yeah. So that's and we're specifying with the 45 that each field can have 45 characters in them, each cell. So that is how you would create a table. You hit apply, and it gives you the actual SQL that's going to be ran for the creation of that table. And you can review this and read it or save it in a query. So you can set this database up on another server really quickly. So that's why I really like how it shows you the scripts. Be finished. And now if we go under, we see we have table 1. We can do select in here, select rows, and we could start putting in our information here. Do something like this, 888, 888, right? Hit apply, and when we apply that, we can see it does our insert into statement, which inserts, this data into these fields. Hit apply, and now that's persistent. So over here in our query, we can begin interacting with our, and let's say if we want to write a script that shows that data. First, we would specify we want to use the testDB database. And then we can do select all from table 1. What this is doing, this is going to move our current session for query 1 into this database, and then select everything from table 1 means it's going to select all fields and their some their associated data. Now, of course, if we wanted to just print out the first names, we could do that. We do select first name from table 1, and now we only have, right? And you can do that for all of them, or you can put a comma and do first last name, and now we have just the first and last name. So that's how you can interact and select data from your query box here. And I think for now, this should be everything I wanted to go over. If there's any questions on this, I'd be happy to go deeper into SQL and databasing. This is something that I have a pretty extensive background in and writing tools for. So I'm probably going to be making more videos on this, like managing larger data sets, playing around with more advanced queries and how to manage them, especially when we get deeper into the security topics. We'll have to go into how web applications, encrypt traffic and ensure that password information is encrypted on databases and best practices. So for today, I hope this was, useful and informative information, and I hope everybody has a great day. Take care.